So, Adam, I remember my freshman year of college, there was a course offered that was called What is Money? And given that you were just talking with me about the concept of money being something for people to really engage with right now, why don't we just start right there? Let's talk about what is money from your perspective.
Awesome question. The classical definition is three things. Money is a unit of account, which means that, we don't think about how many bottles of Tide can we buy, but we think about how much money's in our bank account, how many dollars are in our bank account. Um, it's a medium of exchange. This is what we probably think about most, which is uh, you have a car or a hot dog or a great bear tapestry, and I want it. And what am I going to give you for it? And it's a lot harder for me to look in my desk and find some knickknack that you want than to just give you cash. So it's a way of facilitating trade without having to go into a heavy barter. Um, it solves the coincidence of wants, is what they say. And the third thing is it's a store of value, which is one of the most important functions to me, which means, um, if we used wheat as our form of money, there's some other problems with that, but the biggest one is it goes bad eventually. And if we want to plan for our retirement or think about long-term goals, save for our kids, we need a medium that's going to hold its value over the long term. Those are the three typical things of money. But there's another piece too that I think is missed in that, that's really germane to our listeners, your listeners, is money is a little piece of freedom. Money says, I get to choose what I want to buy, how I want to live to this extent because I have this. And it's a source of freedom that we exchange with each other to choose how we want to live. And I think that gets lost in a lot of the economic discussion, but it's very fundamental to the way we actually think about money, and it's quite important.
Well, say a little bit more about that. In what sense is it freedom? Is it because it can be exchanged for other things and so creates options in people's lives from your perspective? Is it what?
Absolutely. So, um, think about the contrary. So, in the Soviet Union, maybe you get a ticket for boots, whether or not you need boots, whether you like those boots, whether you can get the size of boots you want. Um, if I have, $200 in my pocket, I can go get a very nice pair of boots. I can get some sneakers. I can buy pretzels for all of my friends. I can do whatever I want with it. And that means that I fundamentally have choice up to that extent, up to the amount of the money. And what that really allows each of us to do is, we're a collection of wants. Some might say infinite, but we're all seeking our own happiness. As I think the framers of the Constitution saw, we're all seeking our own happiness. And, what brings you pleasure is probably different than what brings me pleasure. And we all get to balance those desires in the best ways that we can because we have money. And in that way, it's the fundamental unit of choice in almost all of modern civilization.
Now, let me play devil's advocate or really explore this for a
Sure.
moment because I, I worry that an implication of that is that you're saying people don't have money, who are less well off than others, are less free than those who have more money. That the wealthy are freer than the less well off in society.
You know, there's different forms of freedom, and that's really important. And I think, in our society, we really want to make sure that everybody can vote. We really want to make sure that everybody can exercise the right of free speech. We have these constitutionally protected freedoms, which are unalienable. And it is true, an uneven distribution of both capital and desires. And money is the tool that we use to express that. And the government, for better or worse, our government, other governments, do all sorts of things to redistribute and make sure people have access to different things that are important for freedom. Um, but we exercise our choice through money quite a lot of the time. I don't think it's the only tool of freedom. I don't think I wouldn't want to live in an oligarchic society where only the rich have rights, right? I don't think I hope we're not all on that page. But money is a tool of freedom because I get to choose. Do I want chicken or fish? And those micro choices are actually a tremendous amount of the texture of how we live our lives.
So I like what you just said, that money is a tool of freedom there. And I think that's actually a better way of articulating it.
Mhm.
Because when I was in graduate school and rereading Aristotle's The Nicomachean Ethics, he actually has a whole section on the meaning of money and actually connects money to the concept of morality and justice, because it allows us to compare typically incommensurable things with each other. It allows us to be able to compare apples to oranges, for example. And that actually allows us to establish a sense of justice, a sense of fairness between things. And that creates the ability for us to actually choose and make choices and trade offs in the world that otherwise really can't happen. So, being a tool for freedom, I think, is probably a better way of describing it.
I think that's right, and thank you for helping me, sharpen my thinking on it. I love actually having a conversation rather than pre-practiced bullet points, but um,
That's what we do here.
yeah, absolutely, great.
And so I do think this is a really timely conversation, because a lot of people have started to think about money in the 21st century
Hmm.
in a way that they haven't for a long time. The development of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency has been a big topic for the last 10, 15 years, but recently, gold and other precious metals have been in the news. The value's really gone up recently, and people are paying more attention to it now.
Absolutely. And I think, what's been happening really since 2008 is Americans are recognizing the importance of considering different forms of currency, different monetary tools for different purposes. And I think that trend is only going to deepen. And globally, we see that that's absolutely what's happening. And it's kind of inevitable. In my opinion, it's a snowball that's building and building, and there's nothing to stop it.
But a part of this is also that a lot of people are still looking at gold in particular, and
Mm,
Valaurum is focused on gold, so let's go there. They
sure.
look at it as an investment or a hedge, not a form of currency these days. So why should people think of gold still as a potential currency?
Great question. I think whenever we think about a currency hedge, what we're really thinking about is the value of a currency against something else that's similarly exchangeable. So, right there, you're already starting to say it's a currency. In practice, gold is a currency. There's a reason why um, almost every central bank in the world holds gold. There's a reason they're doubling down right now. It's a particular form of consolidated value that has no counterparty risk and is densely valuable. And unlike most other forms of government issued currency, has been growing in value, or depending on how you look at it, perhaps government currencies have been contracting.
So that's a really good point. That even calling it a hedge means it can still be a currency. It still can be this great medium of exchange, um, but people aren't using it much. So let's get into just what Valorem is doing,
Yeah.
and how you're reintroducing that.
Yeah. So there's something called Gresham's law, not to get too esoteric, and it basically says that when we have two or more forms of currency, we try to get rid of the one that we don't like as much. We try to get rid of the most unstable one. And so, if I have one that is likely to appreciate in value and one that I know is going to go down, I'm going to hold the one that could appreciate in value. And that's what we see with gold. People tend to buy gold and use it as a last resort for spending. Often they have to trade it into dollars or euros or Turkish lira or what have you. But in the meantime, they've captured all of that value appreciation if gold's gone up. So I think that's an important piece. I think there was another point to your question, though.
So I was asking you to really introduce what Valaurum is doing.
Oh yeah. So um, gold has been fundamentally distributed mostly by coins for 2,500 years. The rapid appreciation of gold from $300 in about 2000 to well over 4,000 today means that the unit of account, that gold coin, it's simply unaffordable to 95% of the world's population as a kind of everyday means of transacting or saving. So what we're doing is we're making gold more usable in the increments people want. If you look at the stock market, which of course there's, mutual funds trading billions of dollars worth of stock, it's still very rare to see stocks that are over, a couple $100, and diminishingly rare to see stocks, at the $4,000 range. What we're doing is we're simply creating that divisibility for gold as well. So we can make a bill. It looks like a dollar bill, but it physically contains a set amount of gold. And that set amount of gold can be anywhere from about $2 to $500. And what that does is it solves the unit problem that gold is facing. There's another problem in the gold market, and that's that the coin and bars, for that matter, are simply an outmoded form of authenticity. Coins were invented so that you would know you were getting an authentic, specific amount of gold. And what we see today is there are thousands of places you can mint coins and a number of unscrupulous ones. So, just this week, we take in a lot of gold to reprocess it. We always take in 4 nines, and we received, as we were doing our melt of, 1,000 ounces, we saw that something was wrong. And indeed, it was a major bar from another major distributor, and it was actually gold-plated tungsten. That happened this week. Tungsten bars are circulating, and that, it was passed by, I'm sure, one of the most dependable gold companies in the country, one that institutions rely on. There is a big problem where we don't know what we have, and it is simply unreasonable to expect that an everyday person is going to be able to authenticate a $4,000 coin by looking at it. It's a broken system, and we're fixing that by making the Aurum, which is a gold bill that has central bank level anti-counterfeiting features. So you can simply look at it the same way that you would a $20 bill and say, this is real, I can depend on this, and I know that the gold is there. So restoring that trust to the physical gold market is one of the important things that Valaurum is doing.
So one of the things I think that's really cool about this, aside from the way you're just conceiving of money and bringing gold back into this, is the technology behind it. Because coining gold makes perfect sense. Easy technology there. What you're using here just is completely novel and very cool.
Well, thank you. We've worked really hard on it, and we have about 12 years of, really brilliant people working on the engineering behind it. What we do, if you have a coin, essentially what you do is you pour it into a mold and then stamp it into a coin shape. Bars, much the same. Most bars consumers buy are actually minted these days. What we're doing is we're starting from small to big. And so what we do is we have a vacuum chamber where there's no atmosphere. It's like deep space. We introduce a plasma similar to the surface of the sun, although a bit hotter, on top of a gold bar. And we use that plasma to break off individual atoms of gold and deposit them onto the bills. What this allows us to do is to have an extraordinary level of precision with very small amounts of gold. So, my chief scientist calculated we have 10,000 times more precision than any minted product in the world. And what that allows us to do is very precisely deliver $2 worth of gold at a time.
I mean, getting down to individual atoms of gold really makes me wonder, how do we even verify that? How do you verify that we're getting there? It almost makes me wonder if alchemy is not too far down the line getting there.
One thing to put gold down, another thing to generate a supernova to get large portions of gold. Um, Very hard to formulate gold as an element. But yeah, it really is a marvel of modern science that we're able to do this and that we're able to bring it out at any price at all. Um, what we've done in 12 years is be able to use processes that are very similar to how Intel would create microchips, um, but to deliver it at a price point that's um, as cheap as a bar of chocolate at this point, which is just incredible.
So Adam, how did you get into this yourself? How did you come up with this idea and or even just get interested in money and streamlining gold like this?
You know, I want to talk about why I was interested in money, and I think about there's 100 stories. Once you have an obsession, it goes backwards into your deep past and then forwards for all time. But it was really two things that happened to me when I was in graduate school. At the start of my graduate school, when I was at the University of London, um, the first was that I was taking out loans in dollars. I didn't have a lot of family money or help in that way. And then I was paying my school fees in pounds. And I watched the exchange rate over the course of the year go from about, I think it was 1.2 to 1.6. And so suddenly I was really taking out a tremendous amount of dollars to pay for the same education. And it was very viscerally scary for me because I was going into debt and going into more debt than I planned to do this education. And it was the biggest number that I'd ever, personally had attached to my net worth. And it terrified me. The second thing that happened is I had a £5 note, which at that time was a bill where you could get a really nice breakfast, which was great for me. You get the English fry up. And there was a particular moment where, what Britain and most countries do is when they want to change the bills at a particular date, they're no longer spendable. I didn't hear about that. And, I think I left this £5 note in my dorm room desk for a couple months, and I pulled it out, and suddenly it was no longer spendable. And of course, you could go turn it into the bank or whatever. But the very thought that I had this document that could buy me breakfast and couldn't buy me breakfast seemed really weird to me. And the more I scratched at that, the more it became an itch and an obsession that I just had to solve and had to understand much better. I came to Valaurum many years later. I actually learned about the technology. It was two inventors who are absolutely brilliant. They have had numerous inventions, and they were really specialists in sputtering and vacuum coatings. And they figured out that it was possible to create a gold bill in this way. I tried not to be involved. I spent 9 months looking at it and thinking, I can't get involved in this. I can't get involved in this. And then I was simply compelled. I said, this is going to absolutely change the history of money. And I started working with them, spent a lot of time with them, negotiated an initial license, and then, started to bring it to market. And over time, I got more involved in the technology itself. I've had a couple little contributions to that. But, we went from literally making, 100 bills in a garage to making 1 million bills a month. And I'm really proud of that progress.
So who are using these bills at this point, Adam? I mean, that's an incredible story, and you're growing at a clip. What are some of the use cases you're seeing right now for this?
Well, two things. One of the problems I would say that gold has, and one of the problems I think in our general society, is a lot of people don't have meaningful investments. There's poverty, but there's also investment poverty. And so, we have people buying 50,000, 100,000. There's been a number of people who've put over $1 million into the gold in this form, in the Aurum. And that's really gratifying to us. But the other neat thing is people give it away as gifts and turn people into gold owners. And so, we think that the Goldback one, for example, some 50 milligram products, we know people just buy stacks of them and give them out. And the idea, I've personally had the opportunity to give gold to pretty much all the kids I know, because something happens when you hold something in your hand that could grow in value. It changes how we think. It changes how we think about time. It changes how we think about investment, and it changes how we think about the future. And I want a future where all of society feels invested in making something better and in building something for themselves.
So let's contrast that with another kind of new form of currency that a lot of people who care about liberty really like: Bitcoin, crypto, or crypto more broadly. You're
Yeah.
talking about a very tangible asset, and the cryptocurrency is the exact opposite of that. How do you relate
It
these two
isn't. I
to
mean,
each other if you do?
yeah, I'm really excited by crypto. I own crypto. We have some really fascinating plays on crypto. I think we could do another whole podcast about. What I will say, though, coming back to my original remarks, is crypto is phenomenal as a means of exchange. It has some tremendous advantages when you want to move value between two people. You can disintermediate it. You can get it so that I can just directly give it to you. I don't have to go through the two of our banks. If you were in another country, the two of our banks through an international clearing mechanism, I can literally just have you receive value, and sometimes for extraordinarily low transaction fees. The idea that you could also have a lot of safety over that transaction is extraordinary. The question becomes, what's backing that? And there have been hundreds of answers, and some really innovative ones in the blockchain space about what's backing it. And of course, there's blockchain gold. Fundamentally, we get back to the question of, where do we want to store our value? We can never escape that question. And whether you want to locate parts of your wealth in real estate, in food, in hopefully growing companies, in your country, in the economy of another place, or in something tangible like gold, we are all looking for value, and we all have to store value. Hopefully, the more the better for everyone. So, when we come to that, even if you're going to have blockchain medium of exchange, often we want gold behind that. Having said that, the fundamental guarantor of any system is the ability to withdraw from it. And, if I can get my value out of that system and withdraw from it, if I can take my gold out of the blockchain and receive it, to me, that's a very important guarantor. If I can, and other forms of, Bitcoin or, Ether or what have you, Ripple, that may be more challenging, and they have other ways of getting around that. But I think that fundamental ability to withdraw and to hold it physically is an important guarantor of value and a really important tool in a modern economy.
All right. This, again, I think is just such an interesting technology and such an innovative approach to something that's been around for such a long time. What have we not touched on, Adam, that you want to really get across to the Liberty Ventures Network about Valaurum?
I think that we all live in a complicated society. And I think fundamentally, I'm not ready to give up on freedom. I'm not ready to, um, live in a world of total constraint. And I hope that we can all look for technologies that advance human happiness. And I want to live in a world where all of us can plan for a better future. And I think if we, it's so easy in the modern news cycle to feel trapped, or like things are going badly, or what's happening tomorrow, what's happening today, and how do we as a society begin to plan over the very long term? How do we take on projects that take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years? How do we how do we plant a tree for our children to reap? We need better systems. We need to restore systems that allow for that kind of long term growth and long term wealth building for all of us. I think gold has a really important role to play in that. I'm really inspired by some of the projects of the Victorian era, where people would make capital investments for railways or sewage that changed everybody's lives and made the entire country richer, and created innumerable opportunities for people. And the payback on some of those projects was 30 years, 50 years, 100 years in some cases. When we can have a vision as a society of long term investment for all of our betterment, and that we all benefit from that, and that we're all a part of that, I think we'll have a better society. And that's what I hope for. And I think that that naturally creates more freedom and more opportunities for all of us.
Well, Adam, clearly you're not just making the investment yourself, you're a critical part of that. And I just so appreciate what you're building here and sharing this with the Liberty Ventures Network and being a part of this movement of capitalists that are advancing capitalism. Really, thank you.
Thank you.